Good evening, everyone. Today we have a very special guest, very special woman, Grandanian, Canadian educational administrator, advocate for social justice, Fairness Commissioner of Ontario. She has been school principal, parliamentarian secretary to Prime Minister, member of Parliament 1993 to 2006, Minister of State for Multiculturalism and Status of Women 2002 to 2004. She was made a member of the Order of Canada for her distinguished career as an educator and advocate for social justice in Canada. Jean Augustin Scholarship Fund was named for her, which she helps to support single mothers to undertake post-secondary study at George Brown College. She was appointed CBE, Commander of the Order of the British Empire in the 2014 birthday honor for services to education and politics in Grenada, from which she had immigrated 54 years ago. I will only mention a few of her awards: honorary doctorate of laws from University of Toronto, McGill University, Trinity University, and there are few more. I know three or five. She chaired York University Law Department for longest time, and it has been honor for me that I have been invited by her one of her annual function for that York University. There is still a long list of her work and accomplishments that I can take an hour to share with you. I will conclude her intro on this, that when I went to Parliament Ottawa with Jean Augustin, where we also met Prime Minister Trudeau, every new, young, old person, starting from security to all others, was familiar with Jean Augustin personally for her inspiring work and inspiring personality. Jean Augustin is an inspiration for many women, including me. I welcome Jean Augustin.
Thank you, Arooj.
Hi, Jean. Good evening.
Good evening, and I'm so very pleased to be with you and to join you on your program. I am always admirous of women who can command this new technology and this new challenging world that we're in. So I'm pleased to join you this evening.
Thank you so much. And I really appreciate for your time. Jean, as all know that you are extremely accomplished woman, that you are inspiration for all women. But it does not mean that you are here without any struggle, any obstacles, being a woman as well. I would want you to just share or comment something that a little bit to inspire those women who might be disappointed at some point in their life.
Well, I think each and every one of us is born with some skill, some talent, some ability, and being nurtured in an environment with family who would love us from the day we were born, and who would inspire us, and who would surround us with mentors, give us the opportunity to be resilient. I grew up in Happy Hill, St. George's, Grenada, surrounded by family members, people who gave me the assurance that I was worthy, that I was loved, that there was nothing I couldn't do, and that nothing I should somehow avoid or not attempt to. I grew up at a time when the boys in the family were the ones who were educated. And I had a grandmother who insisted that despite the fact that I was not a boy, that I deserved the education, because she believed that education was what, and she had an expression, education would raise the family's nose. And I didn't know what that meant for a long time. But she put the faith in the fact that education would really get me someplace and therefore take with me the family. So I say to young girls and I say to women, do the best you can. We all have different talent, different skills, different ways in which we face the world. And as long as we do whatever it is that's within our power to do, we can reach our full potential.
That's true. And a lot of hard work, of course.
That's right.
Yeah, I see you. You are so hardworking, and I mean, I really appreciate your stamina and your, energy and your passion. Everything. It's really something.
Well, it's important to have a passion. It's important to know what it is you want to accomplish. It's important to, I committed myself way back when to service, to doing for others, to having others see my life as an encouragement to their own lives. And I learned very early to share and to give. There were several expressions that were used around me. To whom much is given, much is expected. And I grew up in an environment where service, do for others, share with others, take others with you. Coming to Toronto in 1960, I looked around for others to help to make the society the kind of place that we wanted to be. Because in the 60s, Toronto was not like what it is today, Arooj. When you saw another Black face, you said hello. When you saw someone with something that was really cultural, you tried to find out, where did you buy it? Where did you get it? Because there was just the multicultural face of Toronto was unlike what it is today. At the same time, the policies and legislation were also not there, so that a landlord could say, it's for rent, my dear, but not to you. We had no landlord and tenant act or legislation. We had no police and community relations. Actually, the Charter of Rights and Freedom did not come till 1982. So those of us who wanted to reach our full potential in the society, who wanted to be included, who wanted the recognition that we were a diverse community, we had to work. We had to work together. We had to be activists. We had to be advocates. We had to knock at doors. We had to march. We had to demonstrate. We had to make sure that we knew who the representatives were and write petitions and go after what was needed in the society. But we also had to be resilient, so that when something didn't work, you didn't give up, but you went at it again and again and again. And so changes are made. Immigration laws and rules are different today. When you look around and you see the faces of people from all over the world. And of course, when we did get our charter, and Section 15 addressed the fact that you cannot discriminate on the basis of age and race and sex and nationality and gender. And of course, I was in the Parliament of Canada when we included the words sexual orientation. So it's a different place. And in this different place, and in this pandemic time, I keep talking about the fact that this challenging times has given us an opportunity with Black Lives Matter, George Floyd's. I mean, we've lifted the whole discussion around systemic discrimination. What is there in the society that somehow deter the full participation of everyone in the society? What is there in the society that show the gaps, and of course the pandemic is an example where gaps are shown in the society between those who have, those who don't have, between the necessities that are needed by some. The pandemic has raised all of that, and I think the issue of the discussion around systemic discrimination, the questions around that Black Lives Matter have put on the table, have created for us an opportunity to get to know our neighbors, to get to know each other, to realize who we are in the society, that we are multicultural, multiracial, multi-ethnic, multi-religious, and that we have to work with each other, and that our fate are all joined. This pandemic is not just Toronto. It's all over the world. It's something that somehow, I hate to say this, but it's almost like a unifying, where everyone is now focused not only on COVID-19, but on those issues that separate us.
Very well explained. I guess it's really a time that we can realize so many factors that we usually don't. Jean, I want to ask your thought on such a big deal that American political arena has welcomed a first female vice president, colored woman, after 200 years of history. What's your say about this? And do you think that in these all 200 years, there was no capable woman for this leadership role in America? I mean, it's a big question.
Well, I am so happy, so pleased, so exhilarated by the Vice President-elect, Kamala Harris. Because I think she has, in her own history, she has, whether one is Caribbean background, or whether one is South Asian background, or whether one is Black American background, etc., etc. I think she embodies all of that, so that we can all look to her as examples of what is possible. And I think that the message here, and she said it quite rightly, when she spoke to the young girls and the young people in the room, she said, while I may be the first woman, I'm not going to be the last. I want you to look at this as a possibility for all women, for all young girls. I run a center for young girls empowerment.
I know.
And I think this is one of the examples. And we will have a picture up at the center as an example of what is possible. That you could be from a single parent family, that you could be from whatever background, that there is a place for you in the society if you work hard. Because Kamala did not just get there. Remember, she was a leadership candidate. Remember that she's also a senator from the largest state in the US. That she's come through different processes, including the judicial. You check all the boxes. So she has worked her way. Things didn't just come to her. She's worked her way. And it's interesting that you said over 200 years, etc. I think when we look at, I saw a picture actually the other day in one of the papers, and they have pictures of all of the men who were vice presidents over the number of years.
My God,
and here she would be the first woman to be in that grouping. And it is, again, when you are the first, and when you come from so many different avenues, I know that there is going to be a lot of pressure on her.
Oh yes.
To meet the demands of all of the different cultural groups that claim her. The Caribbean claim her, South Asians claim her, the Indians claim her, the Black Americans claim her. And all
women.
And women, all the women claim her. And I know what that is. When I was elected as the first Black woman, first African Canadian woman elected to the Parliament of Canada. All across Canada, people felt that they had sent me to Parliament Hill.
I know.
Right? I had a call. One of the earliest letters that the staff brought to my attention was one from a Black man who was in a prison in BC somewhere. And he says, now that you're elected, get me out of here.
I know.
So there is all the expectation.
Yeah.
And of course, you can't meet everybody's expectation,
no,
but she has had leadership roles and she knows how to deal in those leadership roles. And so the expectation from all of us is to be supportive, because, you know, we could be very critical, you know, of a woman. We need to be supportive and we need to make sure that we understand what her role is. She's vice president.
Yes.
She will be assigned whatever it is by the president. She can't just moonlight and, you know, and go out there and do her own thing. She'll be given jobs, but she'll bring...
it's a very difficult time.
That's right. That's right. So she'll be delegated jobs and she'll go out and she'll do a good job which she's delegated. So we can't have all the expectation that she's going to cover all these grounds that we have somehow or the other not been able to, things that we've not been able to accomplish. At the same time, we know that we are in the largest pandemic the world has seen. We also know that systemic anti-racism and the level of that is as high as it has ever been. We see the marches that have created thousands and thousands of people all around the world that speak to systemic discrimination. And that, and we know also that she would be subjected to, not because you're vice president-elect or you vice president, that you would not be subjected to racism and all of those other things that lurk in dark places. But she was raised by a single mother and who gave her the affirmation, the self-esteem. And when we say a single mother, she was separated from her husband. She raised her. She brought her to Montreal with her. So there's a little bit of the Canadian in there also.
Yeah, that's what it is.
The mother was a scientist, a cancer researcher, and she got the best, she did the best she can in terms of her university education and watching her grow up through all of this. So again, there are so many aspects to that woman that all of us could connect with.
That's true.
Whether it's single mother, whether it's being raised in different places, the kind of immigrant kind of experiences, or the different ethnic and the cultural experiences that she's had and have been exposed to. Smart, bright,
very
beautiful.
Smart. Yeah. She is beautiful, yes.
And
he's very capable.
I'm so happy, happy.
Same here, yes. And Jean, just the last question, and I mean, it's from my heart. Like, it's just for my own sake, but I want your say on that. That I see in our world, it is badly affected by wars, weapon trade actually, and gender, race, color discrimination, environmental challenges, and the biggest misery of huge amount of displaced people. Do you think gender equality in leadership roles and decision making can make a difference?
Of course, of course. All the research and everything else has shown that when there are women engaged and involved in policy making, in decision making, in the room where decisions are made, that somehow the outcome is better. I saw again recently, I was reading an article around the pandemic, and they were showing the countries that were able to grapple with the pandemic were run by women. You know, whether it's Australia, New Zealand, Germany, you know, all run by women. and those where the COVID seemed to be at whatever, were more or less led by men, and actually strong men and authoritarian men who figure that that the science is not important, and that they could, through sheer will, make it go away. And so when there are women, and there are all kinds of research, it also shows in situations when if you put money in the hands of women, it betters the family, it betters it's spent on the children's education. If a woman is educated, what that does for the family, etc. And there are all kinds of research. So it's not the issue of peace, women and peace, women as peacemakers, women's involvement in the issues around, because it is their sons and their husbands and their brothers and their whatnot who are usually caught in the situation of war. We know also the United Nations, different conferences that were held and other things about all the United Nations has called for gender parity, whether it's in the boardrooms, whether it is in the public sphere, or whether it is in private enterprise, that there be women engaged and women involved. Because when there are women in the room, the conversation is better. And of course, we criticize the U.S. for, now we just have the first woman elect as vice president. Our situation is now in Canada has not been all that great either. We've only had one woman prime minister, and that was a short-lived tenure. And we have had to make the moves. We're very proud now to say that we have a gender parity cabinet, and we've done and we've attended to a whole series of issues as they apply to women. But at the same time, we know that we have a long way to go to make sure that we have gender parity in our boardrooms, that we have gender parity in so many places in our land and in our political endeavors. At the same time, I think it's important to note that when we say gender, as you've mentioned, and women, as you mentioned, that the issue of Black women, women of color, women who are gay, women who are, there are all of these indigenous women, that we still have a long way to go to make sure that those women are part of this just society that we're moving towards.
So it's a long way to go. It's slow, but we are moving ahead. And women like you inspires us.
Okay. Didn't hear you.
Sorry, could you hear me now?
Yes.
Okay. So I said, I really appreciate your very valuable time and your very valuable comments on this very important issues and important moment, historical moment of America. So, and even women. So thank you so much. And I appreciate your time.
Okay. Thank you.
Have a good night.
Thank you, you too.